let's take a look at some other functions in Media Composer. Now, when you're working with audio, you might get audio tracks that actually have, polyphonic, or you may have different metadata in your audio files. Now, I do have a few bits of audio here. Let's see, I think it's just dialogue. But if I take a look at the bin, we'll open this up a little bit, scroll down, and you'll see here at the end there's some metadata. There's different tracks. The tracks have different names. This could be coming from different source files. But the nice thing about this is when I double click and bring the clip into my source window, what I can do is hit the fast menu in the timeline and say show source track names. And you now see the track names that were assigned from the actual clip file, yay, on your actual. So again, you can decide, what clips you want to bring in, what tracks you want to bring in also. Okay, so that's a selection in the fast menu. We also are doing different ways to view your timeline waveforms. So let me bring up another sequence here. We have a little zombie commercial.
Continue unabated. Safe to
it's different from like week ever.
So you do see all of the waveforms in my timeline here. If you go to the fast menu, I'll zoom in, you'll see we have new waveform options. Because when you're viewing your waveforms, you want to have a better way to identify the waveform. Maybe it's too small, you want to make it larger, maybe you want to control it a little bit better. So right now, if I go to audio waveforms, it's set to source levels. So that's what the indicators are for the waveform. If I go to show output levels, you'll see that some of the waveforms changed because they're actually taking into consideration the waveform from the audio mixer or for your output. So if I go to audio 3 and I say let's just change the level, what you're seeing is the waveform for audio 3 is actually changing. It's actually giving you a better indicator of what that audio waveform level is visually by how you're selecting it here. And we also have the third one, which is full height. And what that does is it actually takes into consideration if the levels are low, it's going to just make the levels bigger. It's not going to change the level, but it's going to visually change it so you have a better idea of where maybe to make a cut on your audio waveform. So that's another nice thing with the latest version of Media Composer. Again, 2024.10. Now, some other things I want to point out, a new thing. Oh, actually, this comes up in basically every demonstration that I do, is this little marker right here. What is this? Does anyone know? It's the trainer, Jim, yes. It's called bin left lock. Exactly. It's almost like an Excel spreadsheet. So if I position this anywhere in my bin and move, it actually locks everything to the left side. I mean, the nice thing is because I don't know how many times you're moving and you have information, you're like, wait a minute, what's the name of that clip? Wait, I'm going back, which one? So instead of sliding back and forth, you can lock anything to the left side of that as you're moving around. Okay, thank you. I'm not taking credit. I didn't write the program, but I am. Thank you to the engineers who put all that together. We also have added in some functionality with the picture and sound workflows. Do we have any Pro Tools operators here? Anybody doing Pro Tools? No? You are doing sound design, though, in Media Composer. I know a lot of you are. And you want to be able to exchange that information to the Pro Tools operator or artist. So when you do an export in Media Composer, if you haven't seen this, we have a new option to export a Pro Tools session. Ooh. So instead of sending an AAF or an EDL and a QuickTime file, this actually does everything all at once. It actually generates a .ptx file from Media Composer. This was introduced, I believe, last year. We started building this in, but we've added some new things in the latest release. So the Pro Tools session allows you to go in and choose. I'm just going to show a couple of options here. You can choose your tracks, all tracks, first 2, first 4, 8, 16. Markers. Notice we've added colors to our markers. Woohoo! So I think we're up to 16. But what we've done is we're aligning to Pro Tools. So you can actually choose what markers are going to be exported in the Pro Tools session that the Pro Tools operator will see as well, because Pro Tools will see those markers. So you can turn those on or off. You'll also see that you can create your video file. It can be an MOV or an MXF, ProRes, DNX HD. If you are on a PC, a couple years ago, we allowed for the ability, or we put in the ability to export a ProRes file from a PC. So you can still export ProRes from a PC or a Mac. Choose the format, and then from the audio side, you can link, if you're on the same Nexus workstation as your Pro Tools operator, you could actually link to the same media without having to export it, or you could consolidate or copy. But the nice thing about this is it is generating a .ptx file that can be opened up in Pro Tools. I'm not going to spend the time going into Pro Tools, but what I want to mention is in the latest versions of Pro Tools, you can generate a Media Composer compatible Pro Tools session. It generates a .ptxm file that, let's see, if I go to my desktop, here's my desktop. You'll see here is my .ptxm. Actually in Pro Tools, it's a Media Composer compatible file. That's what the M is for. And I'm going to create, or actually I think I have a bin from Pro Tools. I can actually drag and drop, that PTXM file right into Media Composer. Say OK. And I now have taken a Pro Tools file, or created one in Media Composer, made changes, and brought that back into Media Composer. If I double click just to take a look at it, you'll see that these are the files that came in. You could choose to bring in the entire stem, or you could choose to bring in each clip on its own. Very cool. It'll bring over keyframes. It'll bring over audio effects and things like that. But one thing I want to show you that is in the latest release, Media Composer 2024.10, is a function called spot to timecode. So if you have clips that you've generated and you want to have them drop in at their timecode that they were generated, rather than having to go in and try to guess or manually drop it in, what I can do, let me bring up my sequence here. I'm going to color code all of these clips so you can see the change in it. Let's go ahead and make them bright yellow. And then when I right click on the sequence, which is the .ptxm file, and choose spot to timecode, watch what happens in my sequence. Those are the new Pro Tools clips instantly brought in, matched up in my Media Composer timeline.